Hello world, Griff here again. With the Premier League off for the World Cup, I could either go dark for 6 weeks or dive into the maelstrom that is the world's single greatest sports competition, and despite my better judgment, I chose the latter, so away we go. Let's be clear, there are multiple problems for me when it comes to World Cup predictions. First problem is, as opposed to the Premier League, which I've been following closely for more than 10 years now, and about which I stay pretty well informed, I'm barely sure who's on which teams when it comes to the World Cup. And that's saying something, since I'm definitely more informed than the average American soccer fan. Even when it comes to the US men's national team, I know a handful of players, I recognize a few only by reputation, and everyone else might as well be randomly generated names. I saw an article go by saying that Pepe had been snubbed for the US World Cup roster, and my immediate first thought was, remind me who is Pepe again? Another problem is that as opposed to club teams who play dozens of matches together over the course of a 9-month season, national teams are barely teams at all. At most, they play in the neighborhood of 15 to 20 games a year. They have no consistent roster, with players being picked from among whoever is healthy and playing regularly for their club at that moment. In many cases, the manager is selected more for his connections with his national association than for his actual football knowledge. And even good managers have to come up with a tactical plan for a bunch of players of varying levels of skill who might or might not have played together before. So tactical analysis, at least for me, is out the window. Truth is, I can't really expect to make informed predictions about who will win what game, so instead of match-by-match predictions for the group stage round, I figured I would make videos examining each team in each group and assessing their chances to advance. Admittedly, this is not rocket science. If you pay any attention, it's usually obvious which teams are expected to get out of their group. But I figured this would be a good way for me, and by extension you, my beloved and devoted audience, to learn the rosters and maybe delve into how teams have played recently and historically at the World Cup, so I can make some actual predictions once we hit the knockout rounds. So after all that, let's start with Group A. There is a lot to say about the host nation, but let me be clear, I'm not getting into the politics of how this World Cup is awarded, and I'm not making a single comment about the preparations or the expected political and social issues that will be raised by this World Cup. There's plenty of information on all those subjects available. For our purposes, I'm just examining the host nation's roster and trying to figure out what we might expect from them in the group stage. So when I look at Qatar's roster, the obvious standout detail is that not one player is plying their trade at a top European club. I didn't check every player's history, but it does seem like a few of them had forays into mid-level European club football, but most, if not all, of their roster plays for local club teams in Qatar. I'm sure there are some talented players among them. I'm sure they will all play their guts out for the home fans, but this is a very weak team. They'll need to defend deep and hope to snatch goals on the break. One thing this team will have going for it, besides home field advantage, is the fact that it's played a lot of games together over the last several years. In a quick look, I counted 21 matches played in 2019, and while COVID obviously killed their 2020 schedule, they played at least 24 matches in 2021. Captain and leading scorer Hassan Al-Haidos, please forgive my terrible pronunciation, is 31 years old and has an eye-watering 169 caps for his nation. For comparison, the U.S. men's team's all-time leader for national team appearances is still Kobe Jones, who got 164 in his whole career. 16 Qatari players have 40 or more caps, and 5 of those players are aged 26 or younger, meaning they've played most or all of their national team's matches over the last World Cup cycle. Again, using the US as a benchmark, just 5 players on our World Cup roster have 40 or more caps, and only one player, Christian Pulisic, is under 26 with more than 40 caps. My verdict is Qatar will probably be a nightmare to play against, and it's even possible they could sneak a win. Before you roll your eyes, remember that no one thought the US would win a match when we hosted in 1994 and we got through to the knockout rounds. But that was in a different format when the third place team in a group could still advance. In this tournament, I don't think it's possible Qatar pick up more than 3 points, which won't be enough to go through if they do. Next up is Ecuador. Interestingly, there's a pretty strong North American professional contingent on this team, with 5 players plying their trade in Mexico's Liga MX and 4 in MLS in the United States. There's also 3 players from Brighton and Hove Albion in the Premier League, but Moises Caicedo is the only one whose name I recognize. Their leading scorer is 33-year-old Enner Valencia, who spent time at West Ham and Everton in between stints at Pachuca and Tigres in Liga MX, and is now at Fenerbahce in the Turkish league. The rest of the roster is scattered among mid-level European clubs and what I assume are the top clubs of Ecuador. I'm going to go out on a limb and imagine that it's possible Ecuador could actually lose its opener to Qatar, but even if they get all 3 points, it's likely to be the last 3 points they get from this group. They won't get past both Senegal and the Netherlands with a win. A draw against either would be an accomplishment. Senegal is next. 16 out of 26 players on the Senegal roster ply their trade in the top 5 European leagues, with the real standouts being Edouard Mendy and Kalidou Koulibaly of perennial English top 4 contender Chelsea, and Sadio Mane, now at German Bundesliga powerhouse Bayern Munich. Team captain Idriss Gueye is also a Premier League veteran who has played at French superclub Paris Saint-Germain. Several of the younger players are on the transfer radar screens of top clubs and will be looking to perform well enough to possibly land a big post-World Cup transfer in the winter window. It's hard to imagine that Senegal will fail to get out of the group, as it's doubtful that between them Qatar and Ecuador will be able to take more than 1 point against them. Winning the group will be a real challenge, though, as they're up against one of the World Cup's perennial favorites. Yep, the Netherlands are one of the favorites to win this World Cup. I can say that because since 1974, Little Netherlands has always been one of the favorites to win the World Cup. Considering its size and population, the nation churns out footballing talent at what has to be a world-leading metric per capita. While only 11 of the 26 players are playing in the top 5 European leagues, 11 more play for top Dutch clubs Ajax, PSV, and Feyenoord, all 3 of which are basically football factories that produce future top players, and so they're either up-and-coming youngsters or highly skilled veterans. Captain Virgil van Dijk of Premier League club Liverpool is one of the 5 best defenders in the world. Leading scorer, 28-year-old Memphis Depay, is at Barcelona, along with 25-year-old midfielder Frenkie de Jong, who has 45 caps for the Dutch. And unlike many other national teams, the Dutch actually have something of a national identity when it comes to football. Perhaps it's because so many of them come through just a handful of top academies, particularly Ajax and PSV. Certain principles of football are just ingrained in Dutch players. You can always expect ball possession, high-pressing defenses, positional fluidity, and brilliant finishing from any Netherlands team. I think they'll win this group, but they'll have to prove themselves against Senegal to do so. This video is already longer than I had intended, and there are 7 more groups to take a look at, so I'm going to wrap it up abruptly. The next group videos will be shorter. Until then, remember to like, subscribe, and comment down below. Pray for world peace and be kind to others. See you again soon, world. Team captain Idrissa Gueye is also a Premier League veteran who has played at French superclub Paris Saint-Germain.